a number of conservative leaders came out in support of the Supreme Court ruling, including Republican Congressman Mike Turner of Ohio, who posted, quote, "Today's Supreme Court decision reinforced the constitutional separation of powers. Congress, not the president alone, holds the power to regulate international trade." And Congressman Turner joins us now. He's a member of the Armed Services Committee and Oversight and Government Reform Committees. So, Mr. Chairman, kind of feels like almost a return to normalcy. You know, when we went around back after I got elected in '94, we all had the Article I buttons. We'd all carry the Constitutions inside our pockets. We'd all call ourselves Madisonian conservatives. We have been a long way from that, and I must say I never thought it would be Neil Gorsuch that would get us back there, but reading what Neil Gorsuch wrote in his concurrence actually was reassuring, because that's what Madison and Hamilton and our framers intended, right?
Well, his opinion is really important, and really everybody in Congress ought to read it, because it includes a warning that I think is really important as we go forward here. You know, this case is really not a constitutional case. It's a statutory interpretation case. Both sides agreed that the president in the Constitution doesn't innately have this authority. The president claiming, as you said in the report here, statutory authority, that Congress had delegated to the president this authority. What's concerning here is what's going to happen now that the Supreme Court has said that the statute that the president cited does not give him this broad authority to assert tariffs. Now there are going to be calls to now delegate this authority. Supreme Court Justice Gorsuch said to Congress, now here's your warning. If Congress were to delegate this broad authority, it would be very difficult to get this authority back, because if Congress did try to pass a law to try to get it back, the president could veto that, making it very difficult. They even said what president would voluntarily give it back, because this would be such a powerful authority, as we saw that the president during his first term many times threatened and even used this authority.
Yeah, so where do you think this puts the tug of war between the first Article I powers and Article II powers? And again, let me just say, as I've said all along, any president that gets into the White House has the right to push at the boundaries of their Article II powers as much as they want. When the Supreme Court puts them back in the box, like they did with Joe Biden, with student loans, or like they did with OSHA mask regs, I mean, that's how the system works. So, but do you think this decision will have an impact on that sort of balance of power between the Article I branch and the Article II branch?
Well, it should, because the president's not wrong. There is a problem with our trade imbalance. The American worker has been impacted by China and others taking advantage of product dumping into the American economy. We need to defend it. Tariffs certainly are a mechanism in which that could be done. Gorsuch's opinion, and certainly the Supreme Court's stance, is this now needs to be a negotiated process between Congress and the president. The president has a good case to make. The legislative process should move forward with a trade policy that the president can defend, that should look to economically, how do we make certain that we defend our manufacturing process? The thing that we can't have is this uncertainty in our manufacturing system. Our supply chains cannot have this push-pull of the constant changing tariff systems. The president wanted tariffs to get people to the table to negotiate trade deals, which is certainly the way to go, which certainly opens our markets, opens other markets, so that we can get our products to them, get manufacturing investment back into this country, expand manufacturing and job opportunities. That's what the president's goal was. It's the important goal to achieve. But what we don't want is this situation of a yo-yoing of tariffs that makes uncertainty that you see in our markets and has it very difficult for our manufacturers to find a constant and dedicated supply chains.
Right, but also obviously the president's erratic statements, moving them all around and saying, oh, the president or the leader of Switzerland was not deferential enough to me, so I jacked Switzerland's tariffs up to 39%. That's no way to run a foreign policy or trade, right?
Right, and that's certainly what you see and you also, as in Gorsuch's opinion, you see a hint of that you don't want this type of power to be vested in one person, because the creep of those types of expansions of use of tariffs for things that certainly they would never be intended in both foreign policy or personal affronts should never occur.
Right. Let me ask you. We were both on the. We were both on the Armed Services Committee in the House. You ran it. I was always on the lowest level. But at the same time, we remember back in my time, your time, anytime there was the talk of war, you would have people talking about the War Powers Act, how that power rests with Congress. Obviously, in lightning quick strikes like we've seen in the Middle East from time to time. So as we saw in Venezuela, usually Congress would not step in. Iran's obviously completely different. What are your thoughts? First, let's talk constitutionally, whether the president, if there is going to be a prolonged war with Iran, does the president need to come to Congress to get approval first? And then secondly, just strategically, your thoughts on what the United States should do regarding Iran.
Yeah, well, Joe, as you know, I chaired Intelligence Committee, and seeing the intelligence with respect to Iran there has been a real and clear threat from the evolving nuclear program there. It's been an issue both directly to the United States, our European allies, and certainly Israel itself. The action that the president took there, I think, was certainly warranted. I think what the president currently has said is that his buildup and his current negotiations with Iran are to ensure that his initial action that he took is followed up on, that we ensure that Iran cannot have a nuclear weapon. I certainly hope that those negotiations are fruitful and that we can avoid that regime ever having a nuclear weapon. And we look forward, hopefully, to those being fruitful. The president has said that if they're not, that he would look to whether or not there's additional action that needs to be taken to ensure that nuclear weapons program does not continue.
All right, and by the way, it's the snow. It must be the snow that confused me. Of course, former Intel Committee Chairman. Thank you so much for being with us. Republican member of the House Armed Services Committee and former chair of the Intel Committee, Congressman Mike Turner of Ohio.
Thank you, sir.
As always, thank you, Congressman, for being here.
Joe, thanks for having me. Really appreciate it.
Good to have you.
Thanks, Mika. Good seeing you.
It's great having you here.
See you soon. Thank you.